sometimes you have to take that first step without seeing the entire staircase. And that is just so true to my journey in my life, because there was no guarantee. And that's where the message I try to get to young people is that, nothing's guaranteed, but isn't it worth a shot? I tell that to my kids all the time.
Welcome to Built with me, Katie Chunghwa. Listen every week as I talk with athletes, entertainers, and entrepreneurs about how they built who they are today and get the inside scoop about their lives. Hey guys, and welcome back. I am so excited for today's guest. She has been a trailblazer in the sports media world. She was the first female broadcaster in the US for a national radio network. She was named one of the 25 most influential females in the sports industry, and she has been with ESPN for almost 30 years. Those of you who watch sports don't even need an introduction, but the one and only Linda Cohn. Okay, Linda, so let's jump right into it. I was doing some research when I was actually prepping for this interview, and I'm sorry, I had no idea that you played hockey, and not only played hockey, but you were a goalie just like me.
Yeah, and that's kind of like how we connected, because I saw, what you did and how you love hockey, and, it's the goalie union, as you know, and it's great. I'll tell you my little story. And I actually, I don't know if, your people that follow you, Katie, know your story about, why you become a goalie, right? Well, for me, I had tremendously low self-esteem when I was a kid. I wore really thick glasses back in the day before I discovered hockey or playing hockey. And, so I didn't really have a lot of friends. And what I look forward to was watching the Rangers with my dad. And then, guys in in my neighborhood, I was about, let's say I was 14 at the time. So I got in contact lenses, and, I had a younger brother, and his friends were playing street hockey. And I decided to, join and play with them because I knew the game. And of course, nobody wanted to play goalie. So I played goalie, and I had, believe it or not, being, nearsighted, but with contacts, I was fine. I ended up having like amazing eye-hand coordination, and I really embraced the goalie position, not only because I was getting good at it, but the fact that it made me feel significant, right? So when you have low self-esteem and you have something that makes you feel like you belong, part of a team, significant, you're good at it, it's great. So then I just kept the reps going, loved playing goalie. It was just so exciting to risk being the one that blows it for the joy of rising to the occasion, right? You could let in like 3 bad goals, but if you make that fantastic glove save to save the game and win 6-5, as you're the hero. So
were you one of those people who just like to prove people wrong?
Oh, let me tell you something. Always. That was like the coolest thing. Because, see, you could relate.
I know. I'm like, I feel that.
Right. Because they're like, they can't believe it. They're in shock that, A, you're good at this position. So what was great about being a goaltender, besides everything I said about filling that void, is the fact that I use that in my career, meaning not just the knowledge of the game. I'm talking about blocking out the noise, right? The criticism, the people who didn't think a girl can do sports. Back in the day, they didn't think a girl can do sports, no matter how knowledgeable you were. But I was so used to when I was playing, and when I went to play ice hockey, when I transferred from street hockey to ice hockey, I was playing with boys that were a hell of a lot younger than me in an organized league, because they didn't let girls my age play with boys my age. So when I was, 15 years old, I was playing with 8, 9, 10-year-old boys, believe it or not, Katie. And I heard and saw like their mothers, like whispering and talking. Mothers, they should be excited that there's a girl playing with her son or against her son. And they were like, what is she doing there? So I learned to block out the noise, and that was a valuable tool as I entered my way, not only again playing on my high school team as a senior. I made the boys team in high school as a goalie. I was backup, but I still started about 8 of the 25 games. But it really helped me, so it helped me to let's put it this way. It helped me, those who believed in me, who were usually men, by the way, because there really, weren't a lot of women in positions. And one of those men was my hockey coach in high school. And I wanted to prove him right. So yes, there's an aspect where you want to prove people wrong, but you want to prove people right that saw something in you. And I was like, I won't let you down. And that really was my whole kind of, not catchphrase, but it was my mission statement as I went through into the sports broadcasting field, because men gave me the opportunity, not all men, but certain men along the journey believed in me and gave me an opportunity, and I didn't want to let them down.
Yes, and I want to circle back to that, but first I want to get to how you decided on being a sports broadcaster, a sports anchor. Was that something that you were done and you just said, that's what I want to do? Because like I said, there wasn't any women doing it at the time. So how did you land on that career?
Yeah, great question. And as many times I'm asked it, it's still to me, you don't really realize what's in your head back then when you're young. So I went to college at a small state university of New York school called Oswego State, which is right near Syracuse. And the reason why I picked that, A, they had a women's hockey team, and that was the first time I've ever played ice hockey with women. And then two, they had a great communication studies department. And, and it was a small school, like I said, near Syracuse. And it just seemed like they had, oh, this looks interesting. TV production. Oh, this looks interesting. I want to work for the radio station. Oh, when you're picking out college and looking at the, back in the day, there were college catalogs, and, that's what you do. So, so anyway, I remember having a conversation, and I wrote about this when I wrote my autobiography, which was called Cohn. It was a tongue-in-cheek look, at my journey, and I wrote it back in 2008. And my friend Allison, who I still keep in touch with, I'll always remember in my freshman year at Oswego State, we're all sitting around drinking, whatever, having a good time on a Friday night. And we're all asking, what do we're having fun, but we don't think about, our future and what we want to do when we grow up. And I said, well, you know what? I want to be a sports broadcaster. And, and this, I'm going to date myself, but who cares? I mean, this was 1978. And, my friend Allison looked at me like I was from Mars. Like she could not, she goes, wait a minute, what? You're a Long Island girl. There are no girls doing sports. I mean, she wasn't even aware that they had like a Miss America filled with the great late Phyllis George doing sports, sort of, on NFL Today with Brett Musburger and Irv Cross back in the day. But I just felt that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to give it a shot. I couldn't go to the Olympics for hockey. I couldn't do any of those things. I couldn't be a professional hockey player. So I knew I had to have a plan and do what I could in college, right? To put myself in position to take those steps and be a sports broadcaster and let people know once I graduated, and also interning, which I did, in my senior year, that I'm around, that I'm here and I could do this job.
Yes. And that's what I wanted to ask you. So once you decided to do this job, what do you think personally that's within you? Were you able to get that job? And you say that
Yeah.
that confidence. So how were you able to go out there and kind of be that trailblazer?
Well, because I didn't look at like how much money I made. I just looked at the opportunity. There were no, as you mentioned, there weren't amazing opportunities for women in sports. So my first job was working for my real first job in broadcasting was accepting a job doing news updates for a 50,000 watt radio station on Long Island, WALK-FM, where my news director was one of these men I referred to that really saw something in me, Frank Brinka. And he not only helped me with my writing, because it was atrocious. I'm embarrassed to say how bad a writer I was coming out of college. That was more on me than the school, because, I didn't apply myself.
I think you and I have a lot in common.
Right. Yeah, right. Because we had other interests, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So he was the first that honed my skills, but then it was me feeling after feeling like, okay, I've mastered this news updates and everything. And there was a DJ I worked with, again, a short story, but Malcolm Davis, he was so amazing. And he would say to me, my God, when you get to the sports in your news broadcast, your tone changes, you just perk up. And we'd always talk sports, and he's like, this is amazing. I mean, the whole thing is different. The vibe, he's like a hippie guy, So then I went to my news director, Frank, and I said, listen, I go, at that time on Long Island, the New York Islanders were huge. They were winning all Stanley Cups left and right. And I said, or actually they were at the end of their run, because I started with ALK in 82. So I think that's when it basically ended their run of cups around that time. So I said, listen, I will drive an hour there and back if you let me cover the Islander games. And all you have to do is pay for my gas. And I will file 45-second reports post-game on the game. Because the Islanders were the most popular thing at that time in that, where I was working for radio. And again, it was a 50,000 watt station. So long story short, he said, yes, who wouldn't? I mean, for $10, just pay for my gas. It's like nothing. So anyway, that is what I tell young people when I talk to them, because that put me in a position to meet people, to network. I saw all those guys that covered the hockey beat. I met all of them. And one of the other guys I met was Ed Ingles, the late great, who used to work for WCBS AM. He was the sports director. He saw something in me. He saw how I handled myself in the locker room like a professional, like I knew my stuff. And then he hired me to do sports updates out of New York City, weekends. And no one else was doing that. There was no other woman doing that. And then ABC Radio Network hired me. Another great man, Shelby Whitfield, saw something in me, hired me. Okay. So each time, to really kind of zone in on your question, I just kept going, until someone said, not just one person, it was going to have to be a lot of people that said I sucked, because I was a pleaser. I still wanted to please people and prove people wrong, right? Prove people I could do it and not let people down that have given me an opportunity. But I figured, wait a minute, I've gotten this far and this far and this far. Let me keep trying. Now, I always had a backup plan because I always wanted to be in sports somehow. So if it wasn't in doing radio, well, then I'm going to try to do TV. So I would volunteer to do local regional cable TV, which I did. And that got me a job in Seattle being a sports reporter and a weekend sports anchor for the CBS station in Seattle. And that was my big break. And I know I'm going on, but they're all connected, Katie, because the reason why I ended up in Seattle was because when I was working for ABC Radio Network back in the day, it was the late 80s, 1988, they were the main Olympic hosts. See, before NBC had the Olympics, ABC did. And so the Winter Olympics were in Calgary, and me, a hockey girl, I was just so excited. You can relate to this. I was so excited to go to, oh my God, Western Canada. Oh my God, this is amazing. And it was amazing. And so I met a colleague who was also working for ABC Radio. I said, I love Calgary so much. I literally fell in love with the city. I didn't want to go home. And she said, you should come visit me in Seattle this summer. It's very similar, the whole Western Canada, to Seattle, Washington. There are no cowboys running around, but, there's no rodeo, but, I think you'd like Seattle. That's how I got to Seattle, because then I took my little tape, my videotape, and called up news directors and said, hey, do you have 10 minutes? I'd like to drop off my tape. And then a year later, the news director for the CBS affiliate, Cairo TV, called me. And that was huge because, again, that's where ESPN spotted me. So you see how it's all tied together. And I'm not saying I didn't have my moments where I was like, why am I doing this? Is this worth it? I'm making hardly any money. I'm working 7 days a week freelancing. I'm doing, and it all adds up to what? When you see your girlfriends and other people, guys, making so much more money, doing real jobs, right? And you're like, what am I doing? But, looking back, obviously it was worth it. You just, it's like, it is really true. It's one of my, I want to paraphrase it correctly, or I want to get it right, but it's really that great quote by Martin Luther King Jr. Sometimes you have to take that first step without seeing the entire staircase. And that is just so true to my journey in my life, because there was no guarantee. And that's where the message I try to get to young people is that, nothing's guaranteed, but isn't it worth a shot? I tell that to my kids all the time, and they get it pretty much. It's different now. It's tougher now, I believe. In so many ways, in so many different fields, it's tougher, I think. And I mean, maybe you could speak to that as well, because there seems like there's more people in this field.
Yeah.
I just think more and more people, it's glamour, right? I mean, yeah. It's just because of but then on the other hand, now there's social media, now there's, YouTube and all. You can create your own brand, Instagram, Insta Live, where I didn't have that in the old days. So that's a long-winded answer to your question, but it was all connected.
So at the end of the day, what you do is you have created your own opportunities. You worked and you created your own opportunities. And you say this generation is good and as far as having social media and having those opportunities, but at the same time, I also think this generation waits for a lot of opportunities to come to them. So if you can
Right.
be that person who capitalizes on these more opportunities by social media, or I mean, being able to just like reach out to you over Twitter is huge for somebody like me. And so that's great for me. But I think too many people sit back and they're like, well, they only see the success side of it. And they're like, well, I don't know how she got there, but I just want to be like her. And they kind of wait for that opportunity to fall in their lap.
Yeah, it's a great observation you just made. And sadly, you're accurate, because I say not everybody, but a lot of people your age, younger or even older, they do wait around, or they do think they're entitled. I hate using that word, but in this case, I think they think they're entitled. Wait a minute, I worked enough. I did this amount of work. I should have this now on a platter. Now, even people in my day and age and people that came after me, maybe 10 years after me, I've been in the business now for a few decades. There are still people that hit the jackpot, right? Where they don't have to travel across the country, where they don't have to, really kind of, really work hard. There are those people, and I know a few of them, trust me, and I don't get it, but I think it was just all about timing, but that's okay. I think it's great. I applaud anyone's success, no matter how they get it, as long as it's on the level. So, I just say to the message is to just keep trying and keep reimagining yourself and keep pushing. And it's hard not to get discouraged, but if you have passion for something, it makes it easier, because the alternative is like, I mean, my son knows everything about the NFL. He's so smart about the NFL. Yet, he came out in California to visit me at a month before the pandemic hit. He thought he was going to, he went on a lot of good interviews at the time, and the timing sucked. The pandemic hit. Nobody cared about sports for 5 months. He had to go to New Jersey and take a sales associate job with a pharmaceutical company just to get some sales experience. I mean, he's only 24. It was a right move for him, to get some experience in sales. I'm not recommending that to everyone, but the point is this. I mean, you have to be ahead of the game. You have to be ahead of everybody. That's why it's never too early. But even if someone who's, watching and listening now, if they're in college, they got to start networking and making contacts. And yes, it is easier with social media. And you know what? Just because 5 people don't respond to you, maybe that 6th person does, that kind of thing, because that can get discouraging. I remember those days when back in the day I was just, sending my tape out and I didn't hear anything. Or, there were people that, didn't like what they saw, even if they did take the time to see it and they didn't like it. And I had to deal with rejection. But I couldn't let that discourage me. Again, if everyone was saying I stunk, then I would have moved on to, all right, I'll stick to radio, forget the TV, I'll stick to radio. And then if radio didn't happen as how I wanted it to happen, then I'd be like, okay, maybe I could be in PR. So there was always a backup plan for me along the way.
So I'm really curious. I'm not a mother myself, but I will never forget that my degree is in business, and a female professor talked one day during class saying that there's a moment in time for women, unfortunately, that they have to make a decision whether or not they're going to pursue their career or they're going to be a mother. So I'm interested to know if you having your 2 kids, if that affected the progress of your career at all, or what your advice would be for other women out there.
Yeah, I don't think it's that cut and dry. I think everyone's different. Every woman's different. Every situation is different. I have proved you can be happy. I will never look back and regret anything. So I was, I had my kids later. Back when I had my kids, it was later, kind of, because, I had my daughter when I was 31 years old. And, but it really took a conversation I had with somebody. And I'll tell you, for me, it was a good story, because it really helped me. I was on that, like, again, that treadmill of like, okay, let's climb up the mountain. Let's climb up, not really enjoying the journey. I was already looking, okay, what else can I do? Right. Boom, boom, boom. And this was when I was out in Seattle. I basically had just gotten out there and I started covering, at that time, women's basketball was big at the University of Washington. They had a really great team at that time. They usually have good women's basketball teams. So they sent me out on the road and I met this freelance camera guy, young guy, maybe 2 years older than me at that time. And again, this was like 90, okay, when I was out in Seattle. And, we're sitting there having a drink after covering a game. And I was shocked to see this guy. He had like 3 kids, and I'm like, wow. And I said, I don't know if I'll ever be ready. I go, how do you know when you're ready? And I'm talking to a guy, I go, how do you know when you're ready, to have kids? And he turns and looks at me and goes, Linda, you never know when you're ready. There's never a great time. And he didn't mean that in a negative way. He loves his children and he loved his children telling me the story. But something triggered something in me, that conversation. And I'll never forget it. I forget a lot of stuff, but I'll never forget that conversation because that's what I was like thinking. I was waiting for some like light bulb to go on that, okay, everything is going to be a perfect situation. And yep, this will be the great time to get pregnant, type of thing. Well, that doesn't happen that way. So then that really helped me get over that hump. And it was a great thing, obviously, because then, and here's the thing. After I gave birth to Sammy, my daughter, I went back to work pretty soon. I was working for KIROT in Seattle, like 3 months later. And, I was able to stay, by the time I had my son, Dan, which was 5 years after that, I was at ESPN and I was able to take 4 months off. It was a little better with the situation. Now, this should not even be a situation. People are so aware in management and human resources, wherever you are working, that's not an issue. It's a right, that women can do both, and you can do both. The only thing that I think that set me back, which I'll never regret, is the fact that I stayed in one place because of my children. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to move from ESPN. I didn't want to for more money. I believe I probably could have gotten more money if I didn't stay at ESPN and stay loyal to one company. It was a great company to stay loyal to, of course, but you know what I'm saying? I didn't want to move my kids around and take them, have different friends, different schools, all this stuff what people in our business tend to do, or they'd be away from their kids, for a matter of months in a transition period. I didn't want to do any of that. My gosh, as I look back, the only thing I regret is, even when I'm working at ESPN, being away from them as much as I was. And that part of it, I regret. But for the last, 15, 20 years, I've been making up for that big time. So that advice you got, I don't think that's not that cut and dry. I think every woman is different.
Thank you. That's kind of what I was looking for, is to have a rebuttal from you, just because it was a scary moment for me. And I can't imagine other people hearing that story, like, I can't pursue my career and be a mother at the same time. And so
that's ridiculous. That's absolutely so prehistoric.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that statement.
Yeah.
We live in a great time where that's not the issue anymore.
Yes.
There's more understanding. And if there isn't, you can go to HR and you can report that for the situation.
Yes, absolutely. So in all your years, you've been with ESPN almost 30 years. Is that correct?
Yes. I started there July of 92. So yeah, for sure.
Do you have your most memorable sports moment?
Wow, there's just so many, and it's a great question. I wish I could give you a great answer. I have so many great moments, because of ESPN. I feel that moment, when you come off the set after an edition of SportsCenter, and it was, you not only had fun, but people were watching, and it was informative, and it resonated, and you had laughs with your co-anchor. It's hard to single out one. I mean, I've had amazing interviews and meeting so many amazing athletes, from Michael Jordan to Wayne Gretzky, these kind of people, like if it wasn't for ESPN having that opportunity to be in close contact. And also when I'm going up to, a Kobe, the late great Kobe Bryant or Shaq, they knew who I was. So for me, this little girl with low self-esteem, to walk into a room and those guys recognize me, and want to say hi to me and just wanted to tell me that they, really appreciate what I do. Those to me are the greatest moments. And not only with the athletes, but with sports fans. Especially obviously guys, because, one of the best compliments I've ever gotten was, when I first started at ESPN, when people would say, hey, I never really took my sports from a woman or even watched sports from a woman until you came along. And I don't even think about your gender when I'm, watching or listening to you. And so I always said, he goes, and they always would preface it, take this, the right way. They're always like have their guard up, and I'm like, oh my God, that's like the greatest compliment you can give me, So I think when I really truly felt I belonged, that was all the moment where it just felt right. And I'm not saying it wasn't a roller coaster ride. And I talk about this in my book from people early on in my ESPN career when I was, obviously seen nationally, there were still people living in the dark ages. And a lot of times, some of them were women who were critical of me with what I wore, how I looked, what I said, how I stood. Oh, you name it. And that was back in the day. And, now you can't really say anything to any woman because you'll be ripped apart like wild dogs,
Yeah.
like anything, you know what I mean?
Guys never
right?
understood the concept of like, we're getting ready for ourselves and for other women, not really you. They don't really understand that concept.
Right. That's exactly. I know. That is a great point. That is awesome. But so anyway, yeah. So I'm sorry I didn't single one, but it's just the fact when, and then I'm still like I'm the little girl, I'm the girl, like the big sports fan. And, I still get excited when Eli Manning likes a tweet of mine. I mean, because I love Eli Manning so much, if he only knew how much. And he likes a tweet I did. And I'm like, oh my God, I take a screenshot and I show my son Dan. I'm like, oh my God, he knows me, he likes me.
Well, listen, Linda, I don't doubt that someday we will see you getting some sort of lifetime achievement award on the ESPYs someday. So you've really been a trailblazer and you've made a name for yourself. And I'm sure these guys, even from watching you when they were little and have now become professional athletes themselves, just love being able to talk to you because they probably look up to you as much as you look up to them. And I am so glad that you're able to take some time to talk to me today. What do we expect from you? Because hockey season's starting in December, is that correct?
December, January. I don't think anything's set in stone, but yeah, kudos to kudos, as to the National Hockey League and Gary Bettman, Bill Daly, the Players Association, but most importantly, the players who made this amazing restart work to perfection. It was just amazing. It was just such great hockey. I still can't get over it. I mean, now I feel they can do anything and it'll be great.
I can't believe they had back-to-back games.
Yeah, I had a problem with that, actually. I know they wanted, I asked a few people about that, like people like in the know that were in the bubble, and both of them said to me it's because they wanted to get out of the bubble. That they didn't, with a no travel. I still felt that, that didn't help the situation, especially looking back on the Dallas Stars, type of thing. But, it is what it is. The NBA is taking so much time off. I mean, they're going every other day. And then I think they have a couple more days break before, if it even goes past 4 games, they're having more of a break and they're in a bubble. So, I'm with you. I think that was kind of strange, but there must've been a method to the madness, big picture, why they had back-to-back games.
Yes, absolutely. I think that overtime and then a back-to-back game and then another overtime probably put a hurt on their bodies, but they're professionals. I'm sure that they're recovering now.
Yeah. And again, you'll never hear a hockey player complain. They're amazing humans.
Yes.
They are just so grateful, and they have such passion for the game, and they love to have fun. And I'm biased, but I always say hockey players are the best, and you probably say the same too.
I
And
watching.
just different. They're just you just love to hang out with them. You guys love hanging out with them. Girls love hanging out with them. They're just fun.
Yeah. Well, when the season starts again and you're back on in the crease, I will be there to bring you coffee, whatever you need, just so I can hang out with you guys.
Oh, that is so sweet. We'll have to figure out something. I'd be happy. And first of all, again, I'll say it again. I mean, kudos to you, Katie, because you're the perfect example of you're not sitting back. You're not waiting for stuff to happen. You're figuring out your strengths. One way to do it is doing an interview like this and the interviews that you do on your podcast, and why not? And that's why, I saw something in you. I'm like, I'm asked to do a lot of these things. I don't do them all. But I don't know, there's something there, and maybe the hockey connection definitely helped, Vegas, the whole thing. But, I just, this is what, just keep doing it. I'm here for you. If you have any questions or guidance, this is what's important to me at this stage. And FYI, and I'm just wanted to kind of circle back. Not only do I do In the Crease, and then, down the road, I'll do more sports centers once it gets back to normal, I hope, maybe in 2021. But I've been doing a lot of radio for Sirius XM Mad Dog Sports Radio, and I have a regular weekend sports talk show on Saturdays and Sundays that begin 11 a.m. Eastern. And it's been great, and I fill in during the week as well when asked. And it's great to be going back to radio. It's where I started. So I just want, and it's great to have a voice and have a hot take. And I've always had this takes on things. And, at ESPN, you're, as a host, you're really not allowed to have that, at least on the show. Maybe it's social media. I know that's changed. But anyway, it's been a great thing. So I don't plan to slow down anytime soon. So I guess you never lose it, Katie, is my whole point.
Well, thanks. And thank you for your kind words. You don't understand how much that means to me, especially coming from you. I appreciate it. If people want to follow you on social media, can you please tell them where they can find you?
Absolutely. And thanks for asking. It's very easy, at Linda Cohn. So it's Cohn, at Linda, Linda Cohn, Instagram, especially Twitter. Probably that's the most active that I am on Twitter, for sure.
Perfect. Well, thank you again for joining me. And I will be seeing you, very soon on hockey season, hopefully December, sooner than later.
Yep, that would be great. And I'm doing the show out of my house, so you can get along with my dog Babs while I do the show. That would be great. No need to make me coffee.
I'm there. I'll be there in the corner holding lights. I don't know, whatever you need.
Okay, that sounds great. All right, Katie, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.